1, 2. Check me out right here, yo. You turn the track up a little bit. All up in my ears. The mic is loud, but the music is loud. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like this logo. I don't like this logo. Yeah.
In the Yellow Jacket Media Studios here in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, the bustling metropolis. The show is sponsored by my company, Max Out Equipment. Max Out Equipment is the maker, manufacturer, inventor of the E-Force technology. E-Force technology is the only technology that allows you to eccentrically load an athlete and then offload weight in either the eccentric, which is the down direction, or the concentric, which is the up direction. It allows you to offload weight and prescribe the right amount of weight on top of the human body in order to build muscle faster than anyone else on the effing planet. And that's why we are the best. For more information, go to maxoutequipment.com. All right, my man Todd Herremans. He is a legend in Philadelphia. He is the co-founder of Body Check, which is a CBD company, which we will talk about. For those of you that watch the show a lot, you'll realize that name sounds familiar because we had Riley Cote on as well about 3 or 4 months ago. He is married. He's a father. He's a philanthropist. He's the founder of the Todd Herremans Foundation. He does a lot of great work in the community. So without further ado, my man, Todd Herremans. What's up?
What's up, Matt? How's it going? Thanks
awesome
for having me.
I'm excited,
Nice
man.
little setup out here in this booming metropolis.
It is, man. It's right off the turnpike, right off 611. It's an easy find. You didn't get lost, which is
not at all. But I did pull into the private drive at first, and then I read your text. And
See, that's why we do that. That's why we do. We don't want anybody's car getting towed or locked in the fence line.
Right.
So you've never probably seen the podcast itself, which is okay. We are, and just give you a little backstory. So Todd and I, this is the first time we physically have met, but we know of each other through our mutual friend, Dennis Shea. Shout out to D. Shea.
Shout out to D. Shea, who's a mutual friend for many people.
I believe he likes, what's the name of that show with Liv Schreiber? It's an Irish name. Anyways, he's like the connector guy. He's the guy that fixes everything.
Yeah.
Dennis Shea is the man.
Donovan.
Yeah, Ray Donovan.
Yeah.
Dennis Shea is Ray Donovan of the Philadelphia area. So long story short, we've known each other mutually through this friend, and it's something that I've been wanting to do is to have Todd on the show, and I'm very thankful that you came in studio. You're my first in-studio guest since I've been a member of Yellow Jacket. All right.
I'm honored.
So I gave you a little bit of a heads up about 4 minutes ago about how the show goes.
I know, so I have so much prepared.
Yes, and that's the whole point. It's a wing it show. We don't really spend a lot of time planning.
Yep.
And I think the best conversations come when two dudes are sitting in a bar or two people are sitting chilling, having a conversation that just sort of flows naturally. So there's no plan, which is the beautiful part. So I asked one question, and that one question is, who is Todd Herremans?
Ooh. That's a good question. Sometimes I ask myself that. I guess it depends on the moment, but I would have to reach down inside to find a basis of who I am.
No pressure.
Yeah, I'd say that I am a father and husband right now, currently, mostly. That's kind of the importance of my life, the main focus at this moment. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's such a deep question to try to answer.
I'm going to open that can up here in a little bit.
I'm a searcher, maybe?
Yeah, see?
Searcher? A people pleaser?
Yeah.
A wanderer?
So many
adjectives.
There's depths to Todd.
Yeah.
So obviously people in the area are going to know you as former Philadelphia Eagle number 79. Who played, I think, everywhere but center.
Right.
On the Eagles offensive line for about 10 seasons.
Yeah.
Drafted out of Saginaw Valley State, Michigan.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, shout out to Todd's mom, who is a Facebook friend of mine and likes everything I post, and I'm not sure why or how.
She said, she was like, "Oh, you're doing Matt's show." I was like, "Yes, I am, Mom." How do you know? And she was like, oh, I saw it.
She is, having never met her myself as well, she's always engaged in everything I do. And I love that about her. And I feel like I know you more just because your mom is a friend of mine
She's
on
a
Facebook.
hands-on mom.
That's what I love. So Saginaw Valley State, you drafted in what, the 4th round?
Yep, 4th round.
When you went to college, when you left to go to college and you said, I'm going to go to Saginaw Valley State, which isn't Alabama, right? It's a, for those that follow football, a well-known school, you kind of know what it's about. But for a lot of people, they're like, where the hell's that? When you went there, what was your plan? I'm going to go and play 4 years of football and then call it a day, or what was your plan?
No, that's, I'm going to move this real quick. It might sound weird. Oh, there we go. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of people today just feel like they finish high school and then college is the next thing, and they don't really have to know why they're going to college, but they're just going to college, And I had no idea why I was going to go to college. So football was kind of just the deciding factor for me, which made me go to college. I didn't. Football wasn't really my love in high school. I enjoyed it. I was good at it. I was big, and fairly athletic. But I really liked playing basketball, and I loved the teamwork that comes into baseball and like how attentive you have to be. So football was probably like my 3rd favorite sport, actually, which is funny because it's not like the other sports didn't necessarily fit me. I was too slow to play basketball at the next level. I couldn't jump as high as I should.
But boxing out was probably a pretty good skill.
Yeah. Baseball, I threw the ball not hard enough to play at the next level, and definitely not accurate enough. And I didn't hit the ball far enough, so I just loved it, But football, I got a bunch of recruiting letters like my junior year of high school, right? And I was excited, I was sitting in class and I get the big envelope full of like different college letters coming in and stuff. So I thought that I was going to be this big like recruit and end up signing like a big Division I scholarship, letter of intent and stuff like that. So I was just catching these letters for a couple of years, and then like I went and did a couple of visits, and they were all just kind of talking to me like, yeah, you didn't play at a very big high school. Why don't you like, be a preferred walk-on? And I was just kind of like, I don't even like football that much, like give me a scholarship or I'm going to go somewhere else, So I didn't get any offers from Division I school or Division I AA schools. And then so the Division II schools in Michigan started coming around. Grand Valley, Ferris, and Saginaw Valley were the main 3. I just really clicked with the O-line coach at Saginaw. Like Grand Valley was kind of right in my backyard of where I grew up. And I just didn't vibe with their coach as well. And their O-line coach was who I knew I was going to be spending most of the time with, And I, it was just one of those things that felt right and ended up paying off for me down the road. The O-line coach I had at Saginaw Valley was Mike Evans, who had some experience in NFL training camps and stuff as a player. So I think he kind of knew what it took to get to the next level, which I never had any like dream about at that point. I was just like, oh, this guy seems like he wants to drink beer and cook steaks for us on the weekends. I can get down with that for the next 4 years while I figure out what I'm going to do with my life,
Well, people don't understand, and I'm the father of a student athlete, a college athlete. My daughter's a senior at Bloomsburg and All-American swimmer, and she had Division I offers, and not full rides, obviously, but she had a choice between like Seton Hall it came down to Seton Hall and Bloomsburg. And Seton Hall was still going to cost me $25,000 a year after all of her scholarships. Right. And Bloomsburg had the same level of competition and actually even better coaching. And the time. So in swimming, it's a lot different than football. It's individual.
Right.
As fast as you go, it's as fast as you go, and that's the time you get.
Right.
There's no other factor involved. And when you compare times at say Big East schools in swimming, it's a whole lot different than comparing the Big East to SEC swimming, right, or Cal and Stanford, or the big heavy hitters in swimming. So even though it's Division I, it's not necessarily Division I swimming level. Like it's not a big difference between the two.
Like PSAC.
Well, yeah. So PSAC is, if you look at Westchester University, Westchester is they're a Division I school playing in Division II, and especially in swimming, they're actually one of my daughter's best friends, senior as well. at Westchester. She's from England, and she's the national champion in every event that my daughter swims in.
Yeah.
So they're best friends, but they're competitors. And she would be swimming at Florida, or but she's at Westchester. So, but what people don't understand with Division II, if you have guys like C.A.R.E. Evans, who came out of Bloomsburg, and let's Fear. He plays for the Steelers now. He's the left or right guard or right tackle. He's a Bloomsburg guy. There's plenty of guys that come out of Division II to play football.
For sure.
But nobody looks at that, and it's always like this, almost like, boy, I'm so happy this guy from nowhere got a chance to play football. But the reality is, there's just talent galore at Division II level. It's just a matter of getting people to see it.
Yeah. Well, here's the way that I've always explained it to people: is they're like, "Oh man, what was it like going from Division II to the NFL? That's got to be such a game changer, because Division II is so much different from Division I football." And I'm like, well, in some aspects, like we had to buy our own cleats, we had to buy our own gloves, unless you were tight with the equipment guy. We didn't get the stipend that you guys got, stuff like that. But when it comes to skill level, intelligence, like speed, strength, stuff like that, I saw all of those things. Now, people are like, well, what are you talking about? Why don't you see that many people in the NFL that are Division II? Well, you don't see them every week all in the same player. You know, like I've seen guys that are really fast. They just happen to be 190 pounds playing DM in Division II, but I still got to get back there and block them. They're fast, I see guys that can bench press 500 pounds. They might be a little slower than the guy that was 190 pounds. You know what I mean? But you see the strength, you see the speed, you see the skill level and the intelligence. And rarely you see it all packaged together at that level. Sometimes you do. But when you get to the NFL and training camp in the NFL, and you get into like the first and the second string and those guys from the big schools, you're seeing it all combined every play. And that was just, probably the biggest adjustment. Is like, okay, you're playing the best guy every down. You know what I mean? So that was kind of what I compared it to.
So when you were a rookie coming in for your first training camp, and trying to think was Hugh Douglas on that team?
Yep. You.
Who was the D tackles? Was it
Darwin Walker?
Yeah, that was by Darwin. Yeah, he's still local, by the way.
Yeah. Love you, Walker. Yeah, let's see. Hugh, Darwin Walker. So Trent and I got drafted the same year. Mm-hmm. So Trent and I ended up, because I played tackle most of my rookie year all through training camp. I covered for Trey because he was recovering from blood clots, and so I got reps with like first team, second team, third, and then I was like third team right tackle. And so, and Trent was first team, second team right end, and then he was third team left end. And so me and Trent were just battling all training camp as rookies, trying to like show each other up and not really getting a chance to go against a vet that was like, hey, cool it a little bit, So that was good though. We built a good friendship between Trent and I, and kind of went through a lot that year.
So you had, you mentioned Trey Thomas, who was, one of the best ever in Philadelphia. I think, he's just a notch below Jason Peters when it comes to talent at that position. And you had on the other end, the guy I'm good friends with John, but how he is the vice president of discipline for the NFL. It's only because
funny. I just saw a video come up the other day where he just dove across a pile and like nailed somebody with the top of his head. Yeah. I think Freddie posted
it. He did.
Like
and you look at that and you're like, he was so mean.
I know. You're like, hey, he was such a dick, and now he's like finding people and shit.
But he's one of those guys, and it's and I tell this all the time. I smoked weed in high school, and I've been a cop for 26 years. So right. I mean, it's sometimes the ones that did the stupid stuff that recognize what the stupid stuff looks like.
100%.
So, but you had those two legends, and then it was Jamal was the center.
Yeah. Well, Hank is actually the center when I my rookie year, and then right guard was Sean Andrews. Left guard.
Let's not even talk about that nut job. Jesus Christ.
Left guard was Artis Hicks.
I forgot about Artis Hicks.
Yeah. So I think it was the year. I think Jermaine Mayberry was done, finished that offseason, or maybe he was on a different squad or something like that. But yeah, so that was my group I got to come into. So some heavy hitters in Eagles history there that I got to deal with and learn from.
And you had to protect Donovan McNabb and keep Westbrook from getting killed. And
you know what was really cool about it is like so I came to the Eagles, and when I got drafted, I was like, this is amazing, dude. I'm going to go to the Super Bowl in the first couple of years, because leading up to 2005, like, they were in the NFC Championship game like 4 out of the 5 previous years or something like that, or 3 out of 5 or something. And I was just like, oh, man, this is amazing. They're just getting on the verge of cracking in the Super Bowl. And then I get on the team, and we go like 6-10, and half of the team gets hurt, and like Tio and Donovan are going in, and I was like, man, the NFL is so crazy. What happened? Like, what happened?
That's got to be, I mean, because where in Michigan are you from? You're not from.
So I'm from the Grand Rapids area, the west side of the state. I went to school on the east side of the state.
Was it a populated area, or was it more rural?
Well, I grew up on a farm.
There's the answer.
Farm town. Yeah.
So you leave and you come to Philadelphia, which is a whole different animal of people.
So I sent my mom to Philadelphia first to like find me somewhere to live, and she picked South Jersey because it's a little more
rural,
agricultural.
Yeah.
So I spent the time driving, and I think that helped me acclimate to like being in the city, and then I moved in the city a year later.
I was a lifelong Birds fan, and I'm sure Rob and John are going to have the same feeling. The Eagles fans live and die. It's the only sport. I mean, the Flyers fans are pretty hardcore, but there's only 19,000 that can fit in the stadium there. When you put 60,000 people who live and die by every single play, and their week is determined by how things go on Sunday. As a player, do you recognize that? Is that something that the magnitude of what your ability to do your job well does to 4 million people?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't feel like you realize the magnitude of it early in your career, because especially if you're first coming to like Eagles fandom is all I knew, you know what I mean? As an NFL player, until I went and played for the Colts my last year. And I just kind of thought that that's how everybody was. And I kind of thought that everybody talked about the Eagles fans being so crazy just because I don't even know why. I just thought that they were like, oh, Philadelphia is just crazy. You know what I mean? Just kind of like they don't know what else to say. But then I spent some time in Indy, and like, yeah, it's like Philly's a football town, and people are like avid about it and a little on edge, but that's what makes it so fun to play here, and they hold you accountable for what kind of display you're going to put out there on Sunday.
I think if you look at guys like Vince Papale and Ron Jaworski, Harold Carmichael, guys that played and then retired and stayed.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain level of person, a certain type of person that can stay. It's, you look at Vince took essentially 4 years and maybe 5 plays and turned it into a lifetime of notoriety and fame, and had a freaking Disney movie made after him, for Christ's sake.
Right.
And you look at Ron Jaworski, who by today's standard wouldn't be a starter in the NFL, but back then he was the MVP of the 1980 season.
Right.
It's guys like that just recognized not only the fandom of Philadelphia, but how also they can maintain and receive that continued notoriety,
folklore.
Absolutely, by staying. And it's for not many players recognize the value of the years after they play.
Right.
Where did you, when you finally decided to hang them up, and I know you went to Indy, and Indy's a whole nother town. We were just out there for NCAA when my daughter swam, and beautiful city, the stadium's beautiful.
It's interesting though, right?
It's different. It
just doesn't seem lived in.
No, it's like, where are all the people at?
Yeah, exactly. And they're like really
never
long
traffic
blocks,
Right.
Yeah, never traffic.
Like we were driving in from 15 minutes out, and I never had to put my brakes on, and this is Monday through Friday rush hour, and I'm like, how in the hell?
Yeah, we're from Philly though. Philly's like a really special place though, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's and Philly's the only place that had zero forethought when it comes to building highways.
Yeah, right. Well, my wife and I talk about this all the time, and like we complain constantly about the food when we were in Indy, and then we're like, man, we never realized being in Philly, like how good we really have it on the restaurant scene. Like the food in Philly is spectacular,
ridiculous.
It is, and now that we've come back, we totally appreciate it so much more.
Now, when you retired,
yeah,
did you leave and go back home to Michigan, or what did you guys do?
No, you know what? I have a vacation home in Michigan that we spend summers at. But no, we came back here to Philly. I met my wife. My wife is from the Princeton area, so I met her here in Philadelphia, and there never really was a thought of me returning back to Michigan. I've been in Philly for the bulk of my adult life, so this is kind of I consider it home. I would feel kind of out of place going back home, and probably find it hard to find something to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, people go to California and then they stay in California, not because California is better, but because there's the opportunity to do stuff.
Yeah.
If you get acclimated to that, you feel like you're never going to find that again anywhere else. And I would argue that on the East Coast outside of New York City and maybe Miami, there isn't a city, Boston, but who wants to go there? Philly, New York, and Miami are the three places that have the most vibrancy, I believe, on the East Coast.
I just really, Philadelphia's just grown on me for so long. It's not like I wouldn't have anything to do back in Michigan. It's like, I just want to be here. You know what I mean? It's just it's a nice place to be, dude. I put roots down here, and I enjoy the community. I enjoy the people that live here and everything about it. The location on the East Coast, like, probably it's a hub for anything,
So I'm going to touch on your wife a little bit here and how you met her, because I do know the story. So, she's from Princeton. How did you guys get connected?
Well, by our mutual friend, obviously, the connector, D.Shay. So I was actually traveling around in the off season, and I had just gotten home while I was traveling, and D.Shay was texting me. He's like, "Man, I got this girl you got to meet." And I was like, "Oh, okay, dude." And he sent me a picture, and I was like, "Oh, all right, put me in touch." And he was like, "All right, well, come to the opening day for the Phillies. She'll be here." And I was like, "All right, cool." And so that was it, man. Every year we try to go to opening day Phillies home opener, because that's where we met. And D.Shay just put us in contact, and I never let her go after that.
That's awesome. And I can't tell many people I like, literally. I think about Dennis, and I think, man, how many people has he introduced me to that I would have otherwise never met?
I know, 100%, dude. That's what's great about him. And not just us did he introduce as a married couple. I think, like, I know of 2 or 3 other couples that he's intrused people to.
He needs to get out of selling sweets and start being
monetize the love bug.
That's it, Philly. The love bug. He is he's a very special human being, and nobody has more energy. Like, I've never seen him tired. Like, I don't know how he stays as up as he is, but he is. You would think he'd be thinner, but and I, at one point in time, I had Dennis in pretty good shape, but then life takes over, and then that happens. All right, so you're married.
Max Out can't feed you.
No, Max Out can't. That's for damn sure. So you're married. You're still playing. When you met your wife. What was her thoughts when you got released from the Eagles and you had to go to Indianapolis? Was she excited, or was she like? Because I can tell you, my wife is never leaving this area.
Yeah.
Ever.
I think she was excited for the opportunity to see another city. It was just such a quick stage in our life where things were moving fast that it was like, why not? Let's go experience this. And it was the first time that she really moved away from her family for a while, for that kind of distance. But I think that she was open to moving and checking it out. But then once we were there, and it was just kind of like, so this is Indianapolis, huh?
She had to become. Now
she's East Coast partial, dude. I mean, she was born in New York, so, like, it's be hard to break her away from the tri-state area.
Now, I know, like, when I was, as a cop and a young cop, and then when I was in the Air Marshals, which was more of a like a Navy SEAL environment, like it was team building, and families we all hung within our team and trained within our team, and picnics and birthdays and all that kind of stuff. Is the NFL community, when you're on a team, say with the Eagles, is that brotherhood, does it extend normally outside the locker room to where you socialize and go to each other's houses or celebrate each other's kids' birthdays or stuff like that? Or is it pretty much a locker room brotherhood and then the wives just sort of know each other on the ancillary?
Yeah, both sides of that, I think you get. There's some wives that already kind of have their cliques that really don't feel like, they want to get involved in, I guess, a whole new world of friendships and stuff like that. So I would say in the locker room, all the guys click, but, you become friends, you're close enough with some people. Eventually your wives are going to meet, and if they see each other enough, they're going to be friends, So you find instances where, families just go and hang around each other. But if you're trying to do that with the entire locker room, it becomes a pretty immense party or birthday party every time you're throwing for your kid or having a barbecue and stuff like that,
Like, I didn't know if it was maybe like the rookies because they're new and they don't really know anybody and they're not yet accepted. They all hang out and their wives get to know each other. Like, I didn't know how the maturation process happened, especially for somebody, you stay 10 years. Not everybody has that.
Right.
That luxury, for lack of a better word.
Well, another thing that's kind of tough with it is for the wives. I know my wife got really close with a couple people that ended up getting released or traded or something like that, and she was kind of bummed out by that. So that's another reality of I'm sure that the wife's kind of have in the back of their mind, like, well, I don't know who's even going to be here for an entire year, so. Just be nice to the people that are here at the moment they're here and have a good time. Yeah, I imagine that's probably tricky for them too, trying to create new relationships and then have them like pulled out from underneath them and stuff like that. I think you're a little more accustomed to it in the locker room.
I don't think, as a fan, I know that football is one of those sports where I was the not for long league, where nothing's guaranteed other than your signing bonus money and your roster bonuses. But as a fan, we don't necessarily look at and oftentimes give a shit about whether or not what your family life's like, what your situation is, whether it just doesn't
matter.
It just doesn't come into the context, because what we're fed, just like in anything else on any news channel, if you're habitually fed information, you become accustomed to that information. And what, WIP or the fan or.
Yeah, but that time's changing, don't you think? Don't you think with the I just feel like this explosive amount of like self-created media, documentary worlds, just people that are creating media companies to kind of create content. Everything is driven by content, and like people get bored of trying to create content, so they just let people into their lives because, and I think, don't you think people kind of know players and stuff, especially with social media, a lot more personally now than they have in the past?
Yeah, you're probably really right on that. And you think of the 30 for 30s, you think of, AB.
Right.
He's the self-imploding oven. It's I can't wrap my head around. And I
just feel like it's exhausting. If I was playing, I couldn't keep up on my social media like that. That would be so exhausting to me,
Yeah. I think T.O. was an amateur in the spectacle compared to what Antonio Brown.
I heard T.O. say something to somebody who was like, somebody owes me an apology and a new contract or something like that.
It's to somebody who has no athletic ability, like myself. I was a C athlete in everything. I was good enough to make the team in basketball, good enough to make the team in baseball, but they called me 5 in basketball. I'd go in for 5 minutes, 5 fouls, 5 rebounds, get out.
It's your practice body, dude.
That's it. And so I was a pick setter. That's what I did in baseball. I was a decent enough.
Did you know that at the time?
Yeah. I was the only white guy on a black basketball team. So it wasn't my role was pretty well defined.
Yeah.
I knew kind of where my place was. But in baseball, same thing. I was good enough to start, but not good enough to be good. Played against Mike Piazza in high school, so that was like my one thing that I can say. He smacked like 4 home runs against us. And the thing, he was a good baseball player, but he wasn't otherworldly. Like, he wasn't a guy you go, man, that guy's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
he just needed a shot.
Crazy how I have a pretty crazy theory about that, dude. All of this stuff is about opportunity.
Oh,
absolutely. There's definitely skill sets that set people apart from other people, or people have the determination or the dedication to develop their skill set along the way as needed. But like, this is how, I mean, I try not to take anything away from myself, you know, but I'm not a spectacular athlete. I wasn't the biggest guy or anything like that, but like the opportunity presented myself to have a chance. And like, I just kind of got in and played, and nobody, never let anybody take my spot. And that's probably why I didn't miss a whole lot of games because of injury. You know, you play injured through a lot of your season as an offensive lineman, just because it's one of those things where the longer you're in there, the more reliable I think you are to the team, you know, and they're just like, oh yeah, we don't want to disrupt the whole flow of something by plugging somebody new in there, you know?
That brings up a great point. Do you think that, because offensive line, people don't, I think football people do, but many people don't understand how synchronized the offensive line is and how within seconds things change at the line when, you know, the center makes the call and changes whatever the shifts and all that kind of stuff. Do you think you benefited from having a Runyon and a Trey Thomas and those guys there to not only play with you, but mentor you and show you different techniques and things that you maybe wouldn't have gotten if you were, say, you know, look at the Jets game the other day and, you know, we had 10 sacks, and that was almost embarrassing to watch. And I'm sure there's talented guys on that team.
We've had them games too.
Yeah, well, yeah. But it's one of those things, but you look at that and you're like, okay, maybe something's missing there. Maybe there isn't that one stalwart on the line that's that.
Well, here's what I would tell that might help shine some light on that a little bit. And I felt this pretty much throughout my maybe not my entire career, but there was definitely a few years where I was not in the top 5 best offensive linemen for the Eagles, right? And usually what you want to do is get your best 5 out there on the field. And the reason that I was on the field is my relationship, you know, with, say, Trey and Jamal, as to where maybe you take the more talented person and put them in my spot. They might be able to dominate somebody one-on-one a little better, but the chemistry, the communication, it's not as seamlessly smooth as it is with me in there, just because you know each other, you know how each other's playing, you spend so much time together. And I feel like that's one of the really interesting things about offensive line that people don't really understand is like, he's not maybe the best top 5 talent on that offensive line, but he's who the coaches see as like keeping things the smoothest rolling and, you know, the communication in line and all of that.
I think I mentor a lot of kids and I mentor a lot of young cops, and one of the things I tell them is consistency in performance is 90% of the battle. If you can show up every day and consistently give the same effort, not only does that help you maintain your place, but it also gives comfort and trust.
People can rely on you if you're consistent.
And I think what you're saying, ultimately, when in the offensive line, I love when I interview people, like when I was on the SWAT team, we would interview new SWAT guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, for a football team, what position are you playing? And you always have, I'm the quarterback, I'm the running back, I'm the wide receiver. I'm like, dude, I need left tackles.
Right.
I need somebody that's going to, when we go into a room, if you've got that left side, I need to know you got that left side.
Right.
And I think there's something to be said about the synchronicity of an offensive lineman, because the money guys, the guys that are getting paid the big dollars, get all the commercials and the shoe deals and their jerseys sold, are only doing that when they're clean.
Right.
That's it.
You don't want, there's a good way to put it. You don't want somebody that's going to knock someone's head off 1 out of 5 plays. You want somebody that you're not even going to know is there. You know,
absolutely. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. My boss always tells me when I was on the midnight shift, he goes, when I don't know that you were there is when you're at your best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Juan Castillo used to tell us that. He said, as an offensive lineman, if you don't hear about yourself, you're doing your job.
Yeah. And it's a no glory position. You know, it's not a place where guys are getting tons of press unless you F up.
Right.
And then it's get rid of them.
Right.
And you have guys, you know, there's a lot of really good offensive linemen out there. And they're really good because you look at it. I mean, Jason Peters was a tight end.
Dude, could you imagine him and Sean Andrews playing next to each other?
Oh, my God. Talent.
Because they did.
Did they?
At Arkansas, yeah.
Really?
Jason was the tight end at like 380 pounds, and Sean was a tackle at like 400 pounds. They used to double team people.
And he was Sean. Speaking of Sean, and I make fun of him because of his. We couldn't keep him on the field, but
one of the rarest talents I've ever seen, man. It's a shame, but you know, I hope he's doing good right now. I don't know if football was his passion. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like, you could have all the talent in the world, but if you get to the NFL and you're not passionate about it, at least passionate about it while you're here, you're gonna get exposed. You know?
How did you get your patch? Because you mentioned now football is your third love,
right?
How did you? I mean, 126 games or something you played. I mean, that's you gotta want to get up every day, in order to do that.
You know, I kind of have laid myself into this underdog role. I think it started basically when I was getting the letters from all the recruiting letters from the big schools. And then it was kind of like, well, you didn't go to a big enough high school. And I'm like, oh, dude, that's not my fault. You know, I'll prove you wrong, you know? And then they're just like, nah, we don't really want to take a chance on it, you know? So I think this kind of gave me a prove the world wrong, you know? And then once I went to like, so that was another thing. When I was visiting with the Grand Valley recruiters, they were like, oh, yeah, you know, you come to our system, red shirt, you know, if you're lucky by your third year, you'll be starting, blah, blah. And then, like, Saginaw Valley coaches was like, you'll be our starting tackle tomorrow. And I was like, all right, let me go start in the league, and then I'll, you know, show the Grand Valley coaches what they're missing, you know. And so it was always this, I guess my passion is proving people wrong or showing them that, you know, I can do it. And then once I got into the league, it was like, you know, because there was a college coach that I heard. My dad was a coach in high school, so he would hear these coaching clinics murmurings about things. So there was a offensive line coach at one of the schools in my college conference said something about Todd Herremans will never play in the NFL or something like that, you know. And so my dad kind of told me about that, chuckling about it, and I was like, oh, maybe he's right, but I don't know, we'll see. And you know, obviously he was wrong. But, you know, those are those little things along the way that you kind of pick up. And I know you're not really supposed to care, like, what other people think, but it kind of helped fuel me along my way, you know, the doubters.
I'm a contrarian by nature, meaning I don't go with the flow. I refuse to join things. If somebody tells me to go that way, I'm going to go the other way and figure out how to get to wherever they're going a different way.
Right.
Like, that's just how I'm wired. So doing this kind of stuff, what you're talking about, is literally how I live my life. I didn't go to college. I'm going to be the first person. I told them I'm going to be the first person from Pottstown High School to not go to college and make $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, not because I need to make $1 million, but because I'm going to make $1 million doing something that people are like, no way.
Right.
Like, I have 3 patents.
Yeah.
I own 3 patents. I helped invent something that is helping people walk who are paralyzed. Like go pound a bag of dicks. I'm like, I am. You can all eat. And my high school won't invite me back to speak for free. Like, I want to go back and help inspire. And I do inspirational speaking. And I've offered to my own high school, but listen, I'll come back and do leadership development. I'll do whatever you want. I want to give back. Okay. Listen, now it's 5,000.
Right, dude, fine.
Used to be free. Now it's 5,000.
Right.
So it's one of those things where I just always want to prove people wrong. So I get and I don't really have a passion for any one particular thing in my life. Like, I don't have my passion is helping people. And it doesn't have a defining mechanism behind it. It's just different ways that I can help people. And so I don't have one particular way that I go, that's my passion. I'm just going that direction. So it's an ethereal type belief. Yeah. And I try to figure out how to do that.
It's not that you're not a person that lacks passion for something. You can find passion in anything. You just need the right fuel to do it. Right. Yeah. I'm kind of right there, you know?
So let's talk about, you know, you're now, obviously you've been retired for a while, 3 years, right?
Yeah,
16?
She goes fast. My daughter's 3, so she was born after I was done.
Yeah. 3 years. So 3 years. So in 3 years, you've done a lot. And I'm not sure if entrepreneurial world was necessarily on your list of things that you were going to become within 3 years after going 11 years in the NFL, where everything was structured and, you know, your days were planned, your meals were planned, your life was planned pretty much. Your off season was planned. Everything was planned. Yeah,
that's one of the hard adjustments too. Is like, dude, I've been going to school and playing football afterwards since I was in like 7th grade, you know? That's all college was. Go to school, play football. Same thing. NFL, same thing. Go to school, or meetings is what they titled it, and then play football. So you get to be like, what was I, 32 or something when I was done? 33. Yeah, I think 33. And turn my phone off.
It's always that guy.
No. Now that I don't sit in like coaches meetings, I have no fear of like my phone going off. So it's and my wife would laugh because my phone is always on vibrate when I'm home and she can't get a hold of me.
Right.
So, where was I going to do that? I was sidetracked by the phone.
Oh, always in school. You were always in the thing. The hardest adjustment was now that you're not.
Oh yeah. And so like we wake up and like, it's like, man, what am I going to do? I don't have to go to school and play football today, Well, let me play with my kids. Well, that's awesome for a couple of years. And then you're like, all right, my kids are like doing stuff now. And now I'm like, all right, let me figure something out. And so basically, and this isn't everybody, I didn't get a degree. I studied my body while I was in college to try to like figure out how, if I was going to play football and take it seriously, to figure out how to adjust. And so this whole like business world thing is like new to me, as like a 35-year-old. And so I'm just kind of like trying to soak up as much as I can as a sponge, read as much as I can, go and listen to like, one thing that I have from playing in the NFL is access to like some pretty successful people. And so, dude, I'm just like listening to them. I probably like look like a creep when they're talking because I'm just like drooling over their words like, oh yeah, give it to me. Tell me more, because like, it's not like I'm going to go back and sit through classes at college. I got kids that I want to play with and do stuff. I got a house I'm trying to build and stuff like that. So I'm trying to create my own education now. And it's been a lot of fun. I that's one thing I do have a passion for that I've learned is learning. I love learning about the weirdest shit,
and that's a great transition. So your company, you and Riley started.
Yeah.
Body Check. And obviously there was way more hockey influence in that name.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, as an offensive lineman, you're basically body checking people continuously.
It'd been Pancake or something like that, but whatever.
Body check, it flows better.
It does.
Pancake's not as a healthy wellness type label.
Because there's double entendre with body check, checking your body.
Yeah, man.
Body checking in hockey. I get it. So the CBD world is now, it's exploding, rightfully so. And as a police officer who smoked pot when he was in high school,
yeah,
I obviously cannot participate in the THC side of the house, but
right.
I can take part
hemp oil.
Right. So I do. I use your product.
Nice.
And one of the things that people need to get educated on, there's pros and cons for everything. There's going to be arguments on either side of this. One will say it's part of the gateway drug community, and people will be like, oh, no. And then there's people that are like, well, right now we have people, doing safe injection sites in Philadelphia where they can go bang themselves up with heroin and then get Narcan when they go too far. And to me, that makes no sense whatsoever either. So the CBD world on a average person level is great because it's an opportunity to have some level of natural relief from pains and aches and sleep and all those things that we struggle with as adults because we're caffeinated, we're too much booze, too much whatever. And it's just a great alternative. And then as you explore it further and go deeper into the medicinal properties, there's obviously more depth you can go into as far as how you treat your body. But just on a basic surface level, it's a great opportunity. And I know a lot of people a friend of mine owns 3 or 4 dispensaries. And it's been a nightmare for her as far as the legal side of that. But what has it been like for you, having beaten the shit out of yourself for 11 years and then 4 years in college and all those years in high school, the compounding issues?
Yeah.
It's not like you have one and it gets better and then you have another one that gets better. They're all compounding.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I got involved with Body Check and this whole like health and wellness space, I guess you would say, is when I got done playing in the NFL, or more or less when they were done with me. I was kind of continuing my routine to make my body feel normal. So I would be taking, anti-inflammatories, painkillers, sleeping pills, whatever. And I just was thinking, like, dude, I don't have a game this weekend. What the fuck am I doing, And so I've used cannabis for since like my early years. Not early, like probably not earlier than well, okay, I'm talking a lot right now. So anyways, I used it in college, all through college. And all through the NFL, I went through some punishment for getting caught and stuff like that. So I had to not use it for a few years in my career and stuff like that. And just those years of not being able to use cannabis made me realize how much it actually helped me, because I had to amp up all the pills that I was taking to get me to the games. And just mixing pill with alcohols and the things that I was looking for while I was lacking cannabis kind of led me down a dark path, And so when I was done playing, I was like, why am I still taking this anti-inflammatory? Let me kick it. Let me look and see what else there is. Are there other options? And so medical marijuana was being really big. And so I started looking at that, and you start learning more about the plant and the components of it and what it can do. And like, oh, dude, look, what is this thing? Anti-inflammatory component, CBD. Oh, wow, you can produce it like legally almost in hemp, Oh, well, let's look more into this. Oh, why hemp? Why is hemp illegal? Oh, hemp was illegal because it was a rival to cotton back in the day. But like, what the hell's going on here? There's more to this, So you just start digging, and then I was like, okay, let me find some people that are into this stuff. And so I got linked up with the best people. There was a group of like-minded individuals like myself that created a group called Athletes for C.A.R.E, which is a nonprofit. Which is a really cool group. All people that are along these same lines of thinking. They're retired athletes. We're just giving people an opportunity, an outlet for other options of health and wellness. As a society right now, if you look at it, like one of our biggest issues is inflammation, and it's caused by diet, environment, abusing ourselves, alcohol, having fun, all that stuff causes inflammation in our bodies. And if we can find something naturally to take it down, like CBD or hemp oil, then why not? Especially with all the craziness that we got going on with opioids, and so when I found out more about CBD and stuff, I met these people. I met Riley. I knew Riley before, but I didn't know he was as in depth into the space as he is. And we started talking, and he told me about this thing he's got going on with Body Check. And I was like, dude, I need to get in on that. Basically, that's where it started. And I am not on any more pharmaceuticals. I don't take any anti-inflammatories. I take our Body Check products in the morning and at night. And if I need it in between, I'll take some of our oil. But yeah, man, it's been amazing. My whole family's on it. My wife repaired her ACL recently and used that. And there's something people are like, well, you can't use that for everything. And no, you can't. Like, there's one thing that I'm not trying to get people the message mixed up about. Here in the United States, we are very good at like disease state stuff, right? Like emergency room trauma type stuff like that. But man, we overdiagnose and medicate the crap out of just daily aches and pains and stuff, and if there's a way that we can tone that down a little bit, dude, why not? And I think that's where we're at right now,
I think
that was really long.
No,
long-winded.
It's important. It's coming from somebody who's entrenched in the science, in the understanding that the knowledge of what is potentially available. So for me, I'm intrigued by it for the simple fact that I've been that guy. That is, I have rheumatoid arthritis. I have joint disease. My joints are fusing together. I'm in constant pain. I've always been in pain, which is why I started taking the hemp oil, the CBD oil. So
here's the thing. And when I first started taking it, I was like, I'm still smoking cannabis. So is this still like because I feel great from smoking cannabis or what? And then so my mom was going through these doctor's appointments, and her kidney function wasn't very good because, as far as I can remember, she'd been taking like ibuprofen 800s every day, twice a day, because she's got arthritis and stuff like that. And so she was looking for something else. And I was like, hey, Ma, you know, you might as well try this CBD, see what it's doing. I take it and it seems to work for me. And so she was like, oh, okay, let me check it out. And so my mom started taking it, you know, every day. And she went back for checkups. Her kidney function's normal now. And then as a side effect, I guess, she doesn't have to take her blood pressure medicine anymore. Her blood pressure's down. So, you know, that's the more and more that we find out about this, the better off we're going to be for everybody. You know, there's so many different components to it that could be beneficial.
And I think the conversation has to separate itself from a recreational on the medical. There is, because once you go recreational in a thought process, it becomes potentially down a different path. And that's where everybody's like, oh, well, you know, the guys that are doing heroin in the safe injection sites started off with a back injury and they were taking a medicine that they were prescribed to take.
Right.
And then when the pain receptors were no longer in pain, but in their mind, they wanted to make sure they weren't in pain.
Right.
Then you have addiction.
Yeah.
And that's where things go sideways. And, you know, I've been doing this for 26 years as a cop. I've seen every bad situation you could possibly think of when it comes to opioids and drugs in general. But I do believe that if there is a way, and I don't know how you do it with humanity as effed up as we are, to keep it to where it's done right.
Yeah. Well, regulation is everything, you know, like depending on how, and that's what's going on with CBD right now is the FDA is regulating it. I think they're starting with food first or something like that. You know, one thing that we've done is this whole time is we're a clean company. All of our stuff is organic. You know, we're third party tested. And we feel like by doing that, we're going to stay ahead of the curve with regulations and stuff like that. Another thing to do is what we're doing is you see a lot of CBD being sold, you know, and even if it is good quality, some people are taking good quality CBD and trying to sell it with things like chocolate or gummy bears or, you know, I saw cotton candy CBD, and like, depending on what you're trying to use CBD for, that might be okay for you, you know, if you just want to tell people you're taking CBD.
Right.
But
it is almost a status thing now.
Right. But I mean, what we really are looking at is like, dude, sugar is known to be one of the biggest causes of inflammation in your body. So why would you take something to help with your inflammation with something that causes inflammation? So like, we're trying to stay away from like stuff like that. You know, we don't have gummies for that reason. Our labeling is very clean. It looks like it could be something like from FDA approved or you know, NSA compliant or something like that. You know, we're not there yet, but hopefully one day we'll get there, because that's the way that we're trying to portray our company.
And I highly recommend, and I've done enough conversations with Riley and you and doing research and looking at your website and following along on social media with everything you guys are doing when Riley's at these different think tank kind of things and he's with like real PhD people and doctors and medical doctors and people that are super smart in this in the research world. So it's not like it's two dudes in a garage.
He's legitimizing
making brownies and throwing some stuff into saying what works, right? So it's the thing I appreciate about it is that it is so public what you're doing on the backside. The research, the development, that it gives, if anybody is interested in learning about CBD, I would highly recommend you start with Body Check and start to see what that process looks like. Well,
education is one of our biggest hurdles right now. And we just got to pound the pavement and like educate people on what CBD is. Like, you know, this is not going to get you high. This isn't medical marijuana. This is a big difference. Like, what it can do for you, what it can replace, you know, and testimonials are huge for us right now. You know, people that use our products telling us how amazing it is and oh, I sleep so good and blah, blah, blah. You know, that's the stuff that we need, because until it gets declassified, the Schedule 1 drug or whatever, we're not going to know that much. You know, it needs to be studied more. It's just been locked away for years. We can't even look at the plant and the possibilities of it. So if you go to our website, which is bodycheckwellness.com, BODYCHEK, wellness.com, there's a lot of information on there, a lot of information. And that basically is what we're trying to tackle, man. One thing we're doing really cool right now is that you mentioned the whole somebody hurts their back, they get opioids. So the unions are being affected by this horribly. So one thing that we've done is we partnered with a nonprofit called IWOP, which is the International Workers Advocacy Program. And we're going to be hosting fundraisers and educational outings and stuff to do something where we can try to help all of the different union workers and laborers, give them a better option through body check rather than, just crushing pills on a daily basis. Because, you get hooked on some crap, you're not going to be very effective at your job either.
No. That's a good transition because I want to talk about the Herremans Foundation. I want to talk about all the work you're doing there. I've been to a couple of your events. We've met at social events, but I don't think we ever knew that we met each other specifically. But obviously going with Dennis Shea with always tag me along.
Right.
Let's talk about what you're doing with that.
Okay. So currently, I'm glad you brought that up. Gives me a minute to clear this up a little bit. So my mom has stepped down as executive director of the Herremans Foundation. So we're kind of idle at the moment. Looking for, we're currently redirecting. So we started out as a multi-charitable foundation where we would just kind of throw a party and then, distribute the money that we would make to who we saw fit around the city of Philadelphia. And I just don't really want to continue doing that. I want to have a little more of a focused effect on the city. So I don't really like talking about things before they take off. So that's just where we're at right now with that. It's just kind of reorganizing it and trying to do something a little more focused.
Well, the one thing I will say is that the people don't understand that almost every athlete has a foundation of some, or at least a large majority of the athletes are involved either with their own or with other people.
Or with something else.
Right. And having been a part of yours and Matt Ryan's and the local ones here, while you may be redirecting and figuring out a new focus, the fact is that you have a charitable heart and that you care about helping people and creating opportunities through fundraising and through charitable work. So for people to understand not only the athletic ability and the prowess of pancaking another human being on the football field, you have a much bigger breadth of knowledge and care that is beyond just strap on that Rydell and call it a day and go out and make millions of dollars. So,
well, when the people that are fortunate stop caring about the unfortunate, and it's a terrible time in our world. So,
and I think having one of the reasons I do this podcast is to share stories and to give people an opportunity to whether I have a book or I had a friend of mine who I worked with in the Air Marshals. He and his wife lost their daughter to an opioid overdose, and I had her on the show, and I've gotten almost 10,000 views on that show just because it's been shared so many times.
Right.
And that story and the work that she's doing now to help bring awareness to the opioid crisis and understanding that even the 2 law enforcement officer family has issues, and that it's you can be blind to what's in front of you. You can't see the forest through the trees, so to speak. And being able to recognize indicators and understand when there's a problem before it becomes an untreatable problem is part of why I do the show. And I think having people like you who have influence and have notoriety and people will listen to just because you are a Philadelphia Eagle, it's a pretty big opportunity for me to be able to share what you're doing with your foundation, with Body Check, and just the fact you're still in the city and giving a shit.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate that. It's an awesome channel.
We're going to wrap up the show here in about 30 seconds. I want to make sure my boy Rob's ready to throw the closing music on. I just want to thank you, dude. You came in off of me annoying you a little bit with text.
Nah, man.
And one thing I am is persistent. I told Kurt Schilling, I messaged him probably 40 or 50 times.
You know what? One thing that I've realized is with a lot of athletes, you have to do that.
Oh, yeah, I totally get it. And so I just said, listen, you can tell me no, go pound sand, eat a bag of dicks. I don't care. That'll stop. But if you ignore me, that just means we still haven't made a connection.
That means that I'm going to continue to hit you up.
So that's kind of the way I work everything. Every week I send Mark Wahlberg a message, Mike Tyson. I'm going to, at some point in time, I'm going to be like my reviewer said. He's not Joe Rogan, but give him time. I want to make sure that give me enough time. I'm going to get those idiots on my
That's
show,
awesome,
and they're
dude.
going to be my white whale. So I appreciate you being here.
Dude,
I'm
thanks
going to
for
close
having
out the
me.
show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening to this episode of the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. I am your host, Matt Cubbler. Thank you again to the legend himself, Todd Herremans, all the great work he's doing in the city. Bodycheckwellness.com, BODYCHEK wellness.com. That's his website. Please check it out.
Turn it up!
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. God bless.
Somebody save your soul, cause you've been sinning in the city. I know too many troubles, all these lovers got you losing control.